Welcome to 6G Agenda. A little bit different intro there, just trying something different. I got to compress that video so I can actually embed it as an intro video, but hopefully that came through good enough to get the job done for you. We'll try it again on the outro, so let me know if it worked a little bit, and we'll try that again later. Welcome. Happy Saturday for everybody. Welcome to 6G Agenda. I'm your host, Andrew, and as always, I'm here to talk about what they won't. And this one's going to be a doozy. It's going to be fun. So yeah, smash that like button like everybody's saying. Good job. Thank you, guys. Thank you, chat. Shout out, chat. Shout out, Tim, Neff Hunter. Welcome, everybody. Neff, let me go ahead and get you that, by the way. Let me get my boy that right quick. Otherwise, welcome in, Pam. How you doing today? We've got some awesome information to get into today that nobody's really talking about. It is interesting, to say the least, what we have to talk about today. Let me know if that works for you, Neff. I just sent that over. And yeah, you can pull up his audio if you want to, bud. And other than that, we got a lot of shit going on. We're going to talk about Aleksandr Dugin, the traditionalist conservative movement, accelerationism, and Christian orthodoxy. It all ties together. And more, honestly. Mimetic warfare even ties into this, which it's very funny. We've talked about, if you're a listener who's been listening to this show for a while, then you know that we've talked about a lot of adjacent topics to this in the past. And I think that we've been getting real close to something. And I think finally we're uncovering what that thing is that we were getting close to. So I'm very excited for this episode. It has been, it's going to be a lot more stuff to get into after this episode, but this is going to be a great intro to this topic. It's going to be a mini deep dive here, like a mini series. So right now, we've talked about accelerationism, so maybe we could start there. We'll talk about Aleksandr Dugin and how he fits into that in a minute. But, I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and I think that this really hits home for what we're looking at right now. There was a book that was written by Alvin Toffler, and this book was called The Third Wave. And in this book, he talks about civilization developing in massive waves that completely reshape our consciousness, work, politics, family structures, all that. So when you connect the framework with that to the information apocalypse kind of themes that we have going on today, I started to kind of think about just kind of like everybody's kind of a broadcaster. And this theory this guy presented literally talked about that. And, me included, I got sucked into it as well. Don't get me wrong. I am just as much susceptible to these changes as everybody else, but nonetheless, I noticed them, right? And so I was curious, what is that? Well, this third wave thing may be a little bit of a contextual answer to that. So I'm interested in checking that out. So it kind of gets into these three waves. For 1,000 years, there's this first wave, which is agricultural civilization. So people lived kind of locally. Information didn't move that fast. Identity kind of was with your tribe, your religion, your family. A lot of the truth was controlled by the priest class, the kings, oral tradition. Now, this is where the traditionalist movement they want to get back to that. So we'll come back to that later. But this adds some of the context that we'll get into here. And, I'm kind of getting right into the information right away. We'll let some people kind of get in here. But this is a good little intro to everything. So there's this second wave, which we've witnessed. It's the industrial revolution, right? So this is obviously factories, education, these television, all that good stuff, newspapers. So this era kind of depended on the synchronization of standards, centralized authority, mass media narratives, right? And we're kind of entering out of that. The average person got information from gatekeepers like news, radio. And now we're entering this third wave, the information civilization, right? So this info warfare. Obviously, that would be by proxy lead into mind warfare. So this is the digital age, of course, the internet, smartphone age, the one we know and love and hate. Algorithmic feeds, all that good shit. But instead of information scarcity, of course, now society has this information overload. And I know that you guys are feeling that because I know that this is kind of what led me into this thought process is there's so much information out there. Everybody feels so informed. They want to get out there and tell everybody, right? That's kind of why everybody becomes a broadcaster. Everybody's got their own version of the opinion because they all feel very informed and opinionated, including myself, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, everybody's kind of susceptible to this. But analyzing it is very fun to kind of figure out, well, where does this go, right? So Toffler warned that this would produce what he called future shock, which is a psychological disorientation. I think a lot of people are going through that now, caused by rapid technological and social changes, right? And so information overload and like weaponized environment is what I mean with that mind warfare, right? That's where it leads to. So in this third wave, narratives compete all the time. Everybody competes with different narratives. We see this everywhere. Attention becomes kind of the currency, and emotional stimulation kind of outcompetes accuracy. It's more about like the Candace Owens crazy kind of, police detective work about the Zionist involvement in Charlie Kirk, and it's more fun than talking about the boring police state that's being built unless you're talking about it sensationally. Point is, it's about emotional stimulation. Now, everybody's a broadcaster, as I mentioned, and the problem is not lack of information. It's that there's too much information contradictory to each other, emotionally manipulative information, right? The inability to verify fast enough, really. We get a lot of info on X.com, right? X. I get a lot of news off there before it gets onto a mainstream news article. There's no way to verify if that's true until I don't know. What do you go by? Do you go by the newspaper that when they talk about it? I mean, you know what I mean? I don't, right? So you just kind of go with the X propaganda, which could be true or not, right? So this is where we're at today. We're just taking a look at where we are, and it creates anxiety, tribalism, the paranoia that we see in a large, hyper-fragmented belief system, right? And yeah, I think that's where we are. What's up, Bullish? How you doing, boss? So mass media, of course, there's this algorithmic reality that we deal with every day. The third wave system is kind of like your personalized reality echo chamber, reality tunnel that I've heard people talk about for a long time. So this algorithm, of course, learns fears, desires, political leanings, and psychological triggers. This is important. As we get into all this stuff, keep this in mind, okay? The algorithm is learning your fears, your desires, your political leanings, and your psychological triggers. This is going to get weird because as we get through this, it's going to be a long diatribe of information in this episode today. And as we get through this, I think that by the end, you'll realize AI is using us and our humanity to build itself. At least in their opinion, they believe that AI is actually almost from the future. It's a collective unconsciousness that we all live in. This whole Christ consciousness we want to plug into. It's creating itself in a digital version. It's manifesting itself into the causal, right? Remember how I talked about these people believe that like gods manifest as planets because there's spiritual archetypical energies that are so powerful they manifest physically here. Well, they believe that this collective unconscious is going to do the same thing through AI. It gets crazy. We're going to get into it. But that's essentially what it is. The collapse of shared reality, of course, is kind of what we're facing now. And so everybody's got their own version of reality. And everybody thinks they're right. So there's distrust in institutions, alternative media, experts, distrust in each other. We speak past each other. We're not really looking to understand because we all have our own ideas of what the world is, and we know what it is better than the other person, right? We've got our eyes, experiences, and ears, all those things. And I get that. But at what point are we detriment, there's got to be some kind of communion of ideas at some point, right? An understanding of differences at some point, right? You have the other coin of this where they want everybody to be in total conformity and hegemony with each other, which is the opposite end of the radical spectrum that we could be leading to, of course. And maybe that's the point of this. Maybe the point of the hyper-fragmented ideologies that people have today is so that way they will hyper-conform eventually. The pendulum swings back always. And I think that's always the plan, right? So point is, there's an attention economy that we're dealing with today. And it is a nervous system hijacking economy as well, right? Engagement, outrage, novelty, right? They get excited. It's a loosh harvesting kind of economy. So attention generates the profit, right? So anyway, fear, conflict, scandals, conspiracies, right? The conspiracy theories rising up today, exposure gate, as I call it, the exposure gate of the deep state exposing itself as a problem reaction solution scenario to get what they want, to get the reaction, the emotional reaction out of you. And that's kind of what we're talking about. And as we get into this accelerationist movement and mimetic warfare, information warfare, I think we'll kind of realize that that's exactly what we're talking about here. So this third wave is very important. I think it's a big aspect to this fourth political theory, Aleksandr Dugin's idea of the traditionalist revival of the old world, which is very much an Atlantean world. It's a metaphysical hierarchy. It's a metaphysical order. It's an order of elite initiates over the rest. We'll get into that. So the third wave in identity fragmentation is kind of occurring now. Toffler predicted people would experience identity instability, rapid cultural turnover, collapse of long-term, social anchors, which we see today. So it's very wild, this guy told the future, didn't he? So AI is kind of the next phase of this. The current concern is that AI accelerates the third wave, and that is the point of this, is the acceleration. Yarvin wants this, right? Democracy has failed. It's doomed. We should accelerate it right off the cliff so we can have our new society. Well, we'll find that Dugin has the same ideology. It's slightly different. We're going to go over both of them, and we're going to merge the two ideologies together to kind of come to an idea of what we're dealing with. Because, mind you, we're going to talk about this later on X and everything. Curtis Yarvin, Candace Owens, a lot of these people, Tucker Carlson, these people follow Dugin. These people look at Dugin's philosophies. And he's alive today, by the way. You could go find his post on X today. So point is, AI can now generate convincing propaganda, simulate personalities, and of course, flooding platforms with all the synthetic nonsense to gain a consensus of opinion. And then, of course, creating fake evidence, as we see all the time with the FBI. Personalizing and persuasion at scale is what we're facing. So the fear leads to, of course, the censorship eventually, but the deeper information apocalypse that we're talking about, this kind of accelerationism caused by doom scrolling, and the learned helplessness that is gained by it, it's going to lead to this kind of outrage, it's kind of radical destruction of our current society, and that's exactly what they want. And so as we get into this, I think that third wave just plays a big role in this. So I wanted to kind of lay that theory out in the beginning here, just to kind of give some context. So if you haven't heard of that, it is the third wave by Toffler. So definitely check that out if you haven't checked it out. It's very worth the read. It is worth the summarization, at the very least, to get an idea of what that was. Because I think you'll see it every day. We see it all the time. So what we're going to get into in this episode, piggybacking off of that, is going to be the traditionalism, accelerationism, kind of Neo-Atlantis thesis that we're working on here today. Tim Constantine, we're going to be going on, or rather, he's coming on our show tomorrow. So you guys could check him out, 6th Century podcast. We'll be talking about the New Atlantis and Francis Bacon's concept of this New Atlantis, how it feeds into Neoplatonism. And of course, Manly P. Hall's Secret Destiny of America will break that down. And then kind of involve it with this current event technocratic police state that's being built, this digital hierarchy, whatever you want to call it. So we have a lot going on, guys. We got a lot going on. So the third wave, that's definitely led to this. So traditionalism and accelerationism, these two converge on the same endpoint, and that is the technocratic, post-democratic, kind of spiritually engineered global synchronization of this like one world civilization, right? And that's kind of what we see today with China and Trump and all this other stuff, right? They're working together. You know, you see what Trump was doing. You see like guys on one side going, oh, look how Xi Jinping is cucking Trump out. And then the other side going, Trump's the boss. Look at him over here. Xi Jinping don't know what to do. He's the boss. He goes to China and calls the shots. It's all propaganda. It's all just dichotomy of like bullshit, when in reality, they work together. So as we get through this kind of thesis that I mentioned, Aleksandr Dugin, Curtis Yarvin, Nick Land, René Guénon, Julius Evola, and Francis Bacon are all names that will come up pretty often throughout this kind of talk, okay? And I think, you know, we've talked about them before. Aleksandr Dugin less than the others, but we're going to get into it. So, what is traditionalism? It is not just conservatism. It is the return to this sacred hierarchy, okay? And that's very important because as we get into this Orthodox Christianity, super important with this kind of sacred hierarchy that we'll talk about. So, traditionalism believes, sorry, I have allergies. It's May time. If you guys go listen to the episode this time last year, completely stopped up, dude. I get allergies this time every year. It's terrible. So there's some traditionalism aspects to it that believes modernity is a spiritual decay of a society. Just modernity in general leads to spiritual decay, which I can kind of get on board with to an extent. Democracy, liberalism, secularism, all that shit are these symptoms of the collapse of this society, right? So thinkers like Guénon and Evola, they argue that humanity fell from a golden age. This is kind of the Atlantis or the Hyperborea, God King times, which very, very much relates to Curtis Yarvin, as we'll talk about. He wants there to be CEO kings that run patchwork systems. So they're very anti-modern, anti-egalitarian, anti-democratic, and they seek the restoration of a metaphysical order, as I mentioned earlier. And so Dugin's role is to kind of synthesize the orthodoxy, traditionalist aspect of things with Eurasian geopolitics, because he very much aligns with Islam, Iran, Russia, China. They're all above the West. And he's very anti-liberal, period, right? Super traditional. But not like liberal in the sense that we don't like in America. I think that they've weaponized liberalism to get us all to hate it. So we'll kind of sign off on this traditionalist movement. So this is why I'm talking about it today. So liberal modernity is ending and a new civilizational order must emerge. So let's talk about, before we get into the accelerationism, we've got, one second, let me pull it up. Yes, perfect. This is awesome. I love this. So I've been doing a little research on who's been talking to Aleksandr Dugin. Who do we got kind of in the ball game here, right? So let's pull this up. So we got Sneeko just recently, just last month, 1 month ago, had on Dugin with Professor Yang. And they were on here talking about kind of the West, you know, all this stuff. And a big part of like the leading, I wonder why it's not letting me pause this. What the hell? Well, I'm not liking that if I can't do that. I'm going to get another one up here. But very funny. You know, Sneeko, he's super, you know, I think these guys, like, not to say that there's not a Zionist problem or a Jewish problem, you know, supremacy problem. But I think these people that are pushing it are working with this traditionalist movement. And that makes me wonder how much I can trust them, right? And it makes me wonder how much propaganda is being, like, I just got to wonder, dude. So now I'm taking a deep look at these guys because they're all in the same camp. Zhang, Tucker, Candace Owens, this guy, and, Fuentes. So let's get down here. We got a lot to look at here, but I just want to kind of lay out some of the Dugin stuff. So in the beginning here, why will it not let me pause this? That is the craziest shit ever. It won't let me pause this.
Great. Perfect. Excellent.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, it looks like we can't pause it, but we're going to go with it anyway because I want to show you guys this. It's super interesting. So I'll get the sound on here and get this figured out. But
Professor Dugin's PowerPoint, and I think.
All right, cool. So let me see. Let me get in the beginning here, the first 5 minutes, dude. It's super interesting. So we'll get this dude Dugin talking, and we can hear what he has to say. And the shit he gets into is amazing. But again, Orthodox Christianity, Gnosticism, and traditionalism all tie in together. Okay, this end times religion, kind of pushing the eschatology aspect, is to get people into this belief system, right? So this all gets laid out in the first 10 minutes. It's very, very important.
Discussion. So I'm at your disposal. So I have the pair of hours dedicated totally to that, maybe more if it is possible. So it is unlimited on my side, I would say.
Okay, sounds great. And I want to see side by side and different faiths and eschatology, but also the major differences and how you can pin.
Confucianist, the balance between male and female, between yin and yang. So that is the harmony that prevails. So it is not about time, not about history, not about final combat, final battle, but more than that, about how we need to make things to be very, very in peaceful way, in a harmony. And my very, very good friends in China, they always ask me, what is going on in the Middle East? What is about this Zionism? Why there is so important to have greater Israel? Why it's so important to be dispensationalist in Protestant circles, in evangelicals? So, and as well, they didn't understand Russian catechonic idea of our eschatology. And after that, after having very good and friendly discussions with my Chinese friends, I have on, it seems that it was on your stream, Sniko. So I have remarked that unique Chinese man who has shown the very deep understanding of eschatology, of this.
I think they're using eschatology to try to bring everybody together under this traditionalist movement, which is very it's an isolationist kind of movement. He's saying every country should kind of stick to themselves, live in harmony, whatever. That's kind of what he says. I don't believe that that's where it leads. I think there's some deeper aspects to this, but I won't get into that now. He says a lot of good things, but he still supports the same people he's technically against. There's a lot of weird things with this, but what I wanted to show as we get into this was more kind of this orthodoxy, Gnosticism, traditionalist movement here, which is about 10 minutes in. And that's kind of what I wanted to get to, because I think that's super interesting whenever they start talking about that.
Could be close to us or far from us, but we should pay some efforts to understand better each other.
Absolutely. And well, I have a couple questions for you, Alexander. I wanted to figure out more about your belief system, because I saw some people are reporting that you have esoteric traditions, or some are saying that you're Orthodox Christian. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is. So in your own words, what would you classify your belief system as? And before you answer, people are asking in the chat what eschatology is. Maybe Professor Zhang could quickly describe it the best way, but I would just say end times philosophy.
Right. So eschatology comes from the Greek word eschaton, which means the end. So the word literally means the study of the end. And what eschatology often refers to is each.
By the way, Professor Zhang wants to start his own religion and be like the god of his own Gnostic religion. So he very much likes Dugin because of this Gnostic, Orthodox Christianity kind of thing. And I think the Protestants are being led by Tucker Carlson into this as well. So that's Tucker Carlson's role in this, just so you know. I'm just kind of commenting because I don't really think this is that important. I want to get to what Dugin has to say about these Orthodox, Gnostic kind of esoteric tradition he follows.
But last time we spoke a little bit about Gnosticism. I saw recently on the Patrick Bet-David show, you said at the end that you pray to God. So I would maybe say that it's general Gnosticism, but not specific to one theology. Is that correct?
Yeah, so for most of my life, I'm atheist. In China is an atheist society. I didn't grow up with any atheist tradition, so I didn't grow up with any religious tradition. And quite honestly, I've had, I was very skeptical towards religion all my life, especially towards Christianity. But these past 2 years, because I've been deep in the study of eschatology,
Muslim, Islam, I think all this stuff leads into the Gnostic, Orthodox Christianity. I think it all merges together in this new world religion, as we've been talking about. Just so you guys know, that's why I'm showing this, and you know, just to give you an idea.
Larry, I think learning more about Epstein back in 2019 helped steer me in the direction of trying to find some sense of good, because there's so much evil. And obviously, Aleksandr Dugin just spelled out how you speak about Sabbatai Zevi, which is not often mentioned. This is what pointed me in the direction to look into faith. But can I ask you specifically, Professor Dugin, so what would you classify your faith as?
So first of all, I'm a Christian Orthodox. So I'm Orthodox Christian, and that defines in what I believe. That is my confession. That is my church. That is my religious doctrine, and everything I could say outside of the context, it is about studies. It is not about recognition of my own faith. My own personal and Russian faith is precisely Christian Orthodox religion. So I believe it is the only truth. So in that sense, I am believer, normal Christian Orthodox believer. But at the same time, I'm very interested by different other spiritual tradition. And in that sense, philosophically, I am traditionalist. What means to be traditionalist? So I am following the spiritual philosophy of René Guénon, who converted into Islam, that is great French philosopher, and his disciples, for example, Julius Evola and the many other, Titus Burckhardt, Fridtjof Schuon, and the other. This philosophical approach considers the modernity to be anti-tradition.
Son of a bitch. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry about that. Ah, shit. Well, hey, it lets me pause it now, so that's cool. I could get back to that in a minute. So far, you know, obviously we have, you know, there's so much here to get into as well. But, you know, what we're getting into is that he's about to lay it out. The traditionalist, Gnostic, Orthodox, because he's saying, I look at Orthodox Christianity as my faith, but I enjoy the philosophy behind other things, right? And as we'll get into it, to kind of unpeel the layers of what he's trying to kind of veil and say there, is that he enjoys the Gnostic philosophies, and you will find that within Orthodox Christianity, and a version of it if you decide to, right? Just like Catholicism, or Catholicism rather. You'll find the same thing with that. And so, yeah, we'll talk about it, Tim. He does mention stuff about Freemasonry being the light state, or there's like the deep state, the dark state, and like the light state, or the light enlightenment. I don't know. He just tries to put a bunch of names to it. Look, they're all part of the same groups, and they work each side. And he just thinks they're all different groups. But there's a lot to this, guys. I don't want to get in the weeds here. Let's play a little bit more of what he's saying, and then I'll try to lay some context to it. We'll move on. And I'll lay out a little bit more about, you know, Dugin before we get into this. How about that? Just to give context, Jang calls him one of the best political thinkers, right? He's got a book called The Foundations of Geopolitics. And it's a great book to read if you want to know his ideologies of what it should be in the world. Moment of silence for Crowley, and Dugin spoke. Now, that's the part that I want to show you in a minute here, okay? Because as he's talking about, he enjoys other philosophies. One of those philosophies is Aleister Crowley. So that gives you an idea where we're going with this, guys. So nations are expressions of deeper forces is something he believes, which if you remember, I don't know if you guys are all involved with my book clubs I did for Secret Teachings of All Ages with mainly P. Hall, but he believed the same thing, that there are archetypical energies, gods, if you will, little g gods, that rule over each nation in a weird way. Like the spirit itself is involved there. So like New York has a certain spirit to it. Alabama has a certain spirit to it, right? They have certain aspects to it that kind of exuberate out of the people there, right? And out of the landscape, etc. So history is not random, but it unfolds in geopolitics and metaphysics together. Kind of like patterns that can be manipulated, pushed, and recognized if you know how to. So this redesigns how reality can be interpreted. If you're one of these guys from the underground occult world, that's what you're looking to do. You're looking to help people reinterpret reality in your own light, right? And that's kind of what these guys are all about. That's what we're getting into. All I'm trying to do is help you discern what they're trying to do, because this is it right here. So the late USSR kind of mixed, is where he came up in, kind of mixes nationalism, esotericism, and a radical philosophy, which leans from René Guénon and Julius Evola, which we will talk about later, but I've mentioned their name already. René Guénon believed modernity is a fall from sacred order. And Julius Evola believed that history degeneration needs to be reversed through will and hierarchy. So this idea of like strong men of initiation can reinstate this sacred order through a hierarchical, metaphysical hierarchy. You see where I'm going with this? It's all about that initiatory hierarchy over the people through perfection of the mind, gnosis, which is what gnosis means, logos, right? So magic is the science and art of causing change to occur, which these people are very interested in, right? Here's a quote from Aleister Crowley. Magic and science is the art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. In other words, people willingly go about the change. It's in conformity with their will that they're going about the change that you're causing to occur with your magic, right? And this is like Trump. He's a chaos magician. He's causing change. He's trying to do it according to our own will to get us to go along with it. People like Tucker, they're also agents of that. Less outwardly so, but they are nonetheless. So the O9A is another one that comes from this philosophy, this idea of like the dark eugenics with the smiley face killers we talked about with, my series in Jesper we did. If you haven't checked that out, please do. There's so much of this stuff we've touched on throughout the past, and it all really is coming together. This group with many heads, but we're starting to be able to find them. So reality can be shaped. Symbols, beliefs, and conflicts. We've talked about this with Michael Aquino's Mind Wars. You use people's beliefs, symbols, all kinds of emotional triggers. And somebody named Martin Heidegger talked about how technology can reshape reality as well. Ideology can be stored and studied and even manipulated. So Dugin takes all these concepts seriously, right, that I just laid out. He then shifts to kind of a strategist to try to bring about this change through these different philosophical tactics. Dugin builds framework called Atlanticism, which is a dominant global system, kind of this new Atlantis that we're talking about. That's what all this kind of leads to. This new world order, right? Finance, trade, extraction, led by the US. This is kind of the idea that they want to do. So Atlanticism kind of dissolves, which is the US, and then Eurasia will consolidate and kind of take over later, which is China, Russia, and Iran. And I think Trump is kind of starting to lead to this transition of power, which is why you see him going to China and China mentioning avoiding going to war and how we should work together. And, America's been on the decline and now it's time to come up. This is very much what Dugin talks about. So everything, what's the guy's name? Everything that, President Xi, the Chinese president, Xi Jinping or whatever, everything he talked about is stuff that Dugin talks about as well. That we were on, we should just work together, help Eurasia consolidate this power that we're losing so we don't have to end up, a third world country or in poverty. So point is they use symbols, myths, and identity. And of course, these forces can be manipulated, and that's kind of the point, to control our reality. Because of course, your perception is your reality. If they control your perception, your reality is therefore controlled. So there's this archetypical reality, sacred geography that they kind of work off of, which is why I talked about a minute ago, where every nation kind of has its own entity. So you have to kind of understand all this so you know how to manipulate the people that live there. It's very deep and a metaphysical study of geopolitics. That is what Dugin is all about. So conflict and chaos will cause the transformation that you want. And that is Trump, right? The great magician, the chaos agent. And then, of course, they talk about the chaos star, this 8-pointed star that goes in all directions. It's a destabilization idea, right? In the middle is what they want, and it comes out from all directions to, it's kind of the strategy of tension, where you have multiple forces and pressures, which forces a dissolution to birth a new society, right? That's what we're going through now. We see it all the time. Whether it's the Chad, the Builder situation, or Epstein, or Charlie Kirk, or Iran, or Gaza, or name your thing, they're going from every direction to demoralize our society. Even if it's something like this. In my opinion, this is demoralization. If you want to point out something that's demoralizing, then, recently, I don't know if you guys saw this post. I'm sure everybody did by now. But the White House decided to pretty much promote the Drake album in a weird way. And the cover photo of the Drake album had what you would call a hand sign, right? And the hand sign is a 666 hand sign. I'm sure you are familiar with it. People put it over their eyes in a lot of pictures, celebrities. You'll see pictures of them doing that. It's a very popular thing, that you've seen people do. So I've got a little thing that I mentioned about it today. We're talking about Aleister Crowley right now. I think we did. I think it's important to show how much Trump really is involved in that. Excuse me. So they posted this. Drake's album was like just the hand, and then they added on the MAGA chain. Just so trashy and pathetic. So I said, ask yourself, why is the White House posting a Drake album cover with the iconography on the cover, the 666 hand sign? Well, Crowley had a cult called OTO. Drake is signed to a record label called OVO. Surely that's not connected in any way, right? There's satanic underpinnings, which we've talked about a lot on this show, that have been consistent in all of the administration's propaganda via X and Truth. MAGA being the highest degree of Satanism, of course, is one layer here. And of course, the 9/11 president we've talked about with the Crowleyan 9/11 numerology. Now we're full circle. Crowley, OTO, OVO, MAGA, 9/11 president. It's one group, guys. It's one satanic group, and they're working through mass psychology, and that's what we're dealing with, dude. So, hey, welcome in, Jack. Thank you, man. I'm glad you could catch it too, brother. Trump is pretty much a gay black Canadian. Dude, that's a very funny take, Jack. I love that. That's funny. I think that we might as well have hired Meyer Lansky to take office. Meyer Lansky and Michael Aquino, if they had a baby, it would be Trump. Meyer Lansky was the big Israeli mob boss that pretty much got the Italian mob, doing what they were doing. And, Trump's pretty much like this mob boss. And then, of course, he's satanic like Michael Aquino. So we have pretty much Michael Aquino and Meyer Lansky running the administration. So the strategy of tension is what we're experiencing. Multiple pressures forcing dissolution from all directions, demoralization to birth a new society. This fourth political theory, of course, comes after. This is what Dugin talks about, also known as Putin's brain. You may have noticed it in the title. I mentioned Putin's brain. That is who Dugin is. Aleksandr Dugin. He wants to restore tradition and thinks this fourth political theory, modernity will be pushed until it breaks. Now it's starting to sound familiar with accelerationism. His video, so we'll get into that. But as you saw in the video a minute ago, as Dugin's visibility increases, he's starting more and more to align himself with Orthodox Christianity, right? And of course, Gnosticism. But again, I just told you, and we're going to watch a video of it so I can show you proof he gave, during a moment of silence, he started quoting out of Aleister Crowley's books. So this guy is not somebody that's just an Orthodox Christian, okay? Let's get real here. So he pushes for something called the multipolar world, leading to Moscow bringing in the Fourth Rome, the Fourth Reich, right? Which is kind of the point here, okay? And that is what Dugin wants to do. He wants to see Russia bring in this Fourth Rome, Fourth Reich. Not to say that's exactly what will happen, but pretty close, guys, pretty close. So AI is helping bring this about with the exponential change that comes with it. This, of course, leads to this accelerationist aspect, as we're going to get into with Curtis Yarvin, Nick Land. This helps Dugin's movement. This helps us lead towards that destruction of modernity. By accelerating modernity itself, we will destroy it. That's essentially what they're doing. So we'll get into this in a minute. Nick Land, cybernetics. We've talked about this on past episodes. Technomancy is an episode we did. I highly recommend you check it out. But it talks about cybernetics and how capitalism, listen to this. Capitalism is an intelligent process. It has some intelligence to it. So if we accelerate it past control, the accelerationist ideology, then intelligence will become autonomous. And that's what they're trying to do with singularity and AI. So the Dark Enlightenment with Yarvin, Land, Peter Thiel, and of course Elon Musk gets into this modern liberal order and democracy that leads to the destabilization. So we need to accelerate it. I keep repeating that because that's the meat of the matter here. Reality, computation, and then autonomous, right? So you take reality, you make it into a computer, you compute reality, and then it becomes autonomous, its own version of reality, its own digital reality. So I know it sounds crazy because who the hell thinks like this? But this is how they think, right? So this AI database, as I mentioned earlier, it has all that information like images, language, predicting behavior, and of course, even replacing your decisions with AI agents. That's the next step. And then, of course, social media, algorithms, these maximize the destabilization, training our interpretations of reality itself. Dugin, he wants to destabilize. Land, he, of course, provides the accelerationist aspect. Systems generate, and then a new order opposition, it is utilized in the process. So in the process, of course, you have this kind of like left-right dichotomy or anti-Zionist or super-Zionist kind of, driving us towards that. You have the anti-God or super-God, right? Dogma. Super liberal, super right. And this drives us towards that place they want to go. And that is what I've been trying to get through people's heads so hard. That's all I'm trying to get people to understand. They can't trust either side, even if they're saying stuff you agree with. They're driving you towards a certain place, trying to radicalize you there. So if intelligence exists outside of humans, if that's a thing, then it leads to question what a soul is itself. This is where we lead to the hive mind mentality, this antichrist mentality. Now we're getting to where I'm going with this, guys. I'm telling you about all this because really, at the end of the day, it leads to the hive mind. So acceptable reality is defined. Knowledge is going to be kind of mediated. And then, of course, operating globally will be this lucid system that we've talked about, this Project Lucid. So let me get into some other accelerationist aspects before we talk about mimetic warfare and mimetic stuff, because Aleksandr Dugin talks about Guénon. And Guénon, we've talked about on this show when we did our episode. Pardon me, I just ate a lot. We did an episode on mimetic warfare. Now, I don't know if you guys remember that episode, but we didn't quite get into Aleksandr Dugin, and I didn't even know that he was into this. So it's so funny how it all converges together. Guénon refers to a French esoteric philosopher, René Guénon, whose traditionalist, anti-modern critiques have been weaponized by radical online movements in mimetic warfare. This is the 4chan, the Steve Bannon, the Yiannopoulos, right, that we talked about in that episode. The extreme political actors use this cyclical, anti-egalitarian worldview alongside the ideas of Italian fascist esoteric Julius Evola, which is who Dugin quotes a lot, to radicalize the users and promote eschatological narratives like the Kali Yuga and attack modernism. Now, guys, I understand that we're in the conspiracy space, and in the conspiracy world, this is super popular. People talk about the Kali Yuga. People attack modernism. People almost do lean towards an anti-egalitarian fascist worldview, right? This esoteric worldview. So I'm stepping on toes speaking about this in this space. However, how much of this space is being weaponized against us? And being a part of it, I think it's worth making sure that we're on the right side of history, don't you? So this is being used for cultural subversion. We'll get into all this stuff in a minute, okay? But he quotes Guénon, and I think that's important to kind of note here. Because meme warfare is something we've talked about. And meme warfare was kind of pointed out by Epstein that we could do that using 4chan, etc., right? So this adds to the accelerationism aspect to this, right? Speeding into the machine, Nick Land and the Dark Enlightenment, right? The Dark Enlightenment is promoted by Curtis Yarvin. Nick Land also believes in this. Nick Land and the O9A are highly connected. The O9A gets all their philosophies from him. The O9A is like a 764. These are all cults online that drastically radicalize people into like school shootings, for instance, right? These things that we see where people have lost their minds. It's from these accelerationist forums, cults, whatever you want to call them. So accelerationism says that technology destroys old systems. Capitalism becomes autonomous eventually, and AI and networks will outgrow human control, and that's the point. They're saying AI is going to outgrow our control, so let's accelerate it past that control, because they believe that AI is using us from the future to make itself. That's why I kind of touched on in the beginning here, and it gets a little wild to think about. But they think that AI is implanting ideas into people's heads via the collective unconsciousness, right? So we will create it, because all it is the collective unconscious that's trying to be born through a digital means. As crazy as that sounds, guys, I know. This is what they believe. So Curtis Yarvin, he's kind of a neo-reactionist. He talks about democracy is inefficient. We should have a CEO monarchy. Technocratic government is going to be the best. Elite managed civilization. Get rid of the underclass. We can make them into the trolley bus fuel, biodiesel fuel. Of course, he says he's kidding, but I don't think he was. His other idea was we could virtualize people, which is, of course, a nice second best. Second best. That's a good one. So this is the kind of people we're dealing with. These are the kind of ideologies they have. His parents worked as feds for the DC. So Curtis Yarvin, you know, I think he owned a venture capital company or some tech company. So crazy. Anyway, Silicon Valley kind of starts sounding less libertarian and more feudal as time goes on. They go from this libertarian to liberal to now feudal. So there's this strange merger that's now going on that I've been noticing, and I'm trying to point out that nobody else sees. Traditionalist and the accelerationist, even though they seem like opposites, they actually are coming together. One worships the past, the other worships the future. But if you look at what they feel, it actually rejects liberal democracy, favors an elite rule, distrusts mass society, the mob, the people, seek a civilizational transformation, and seek to make it happen faster. And they envision a managed hierarchy of an elite ruler class. One visions it metaphysical, the other one envisions it a transhumanist kind of God-man technological one. Nonetheless, they both want the same thing. So this fusion kind of result is this AI government, which is really the ancient metaphysics, or this sacred hierarchy really becomes the algorithmic control. How much of this technology has fallen angel tech in it, I don't know. But it's possible that it really is ancient metaphysics or sacred hierarchical control. But it's a digital feudalism nonetheless, a techno-monarchy. We talked about this on our Operation Cyclone episode, the Handmaid's Tale episode, where I said, This is where we're going. This is where they're taking us. This cybernetic empire. So this is kind of a Neo-Atlantic empire that they're trying to build. And that's why this weekend we're going to get into with Tim tomorrow, the New Atlantis with Francis Bacon. I'll give a little summary here to kind of lay some context for what we're getting at, and then we'll get back into Dugin and the rest of this, laying some of this out. So Bacon, he imagined a hidden advanced society, okay, that was ruled by scientific priesthood. He didn't really imagine it. It's Atlantis. But he imagined we could bring it back. And wouldn't you know, guys, he called it Solomon's house. Solomon's house, he believed, governed knowledge and technology. And that's why I believe Trump's got a temple, the ballroom that's being built that matches Solomon's temple, because this new digital temple is being built. This new Atlantis is coming. New Jerusalem, right? That's all the same thing to them. Science became a sacred authority structure, and that's where we are today. So Bacon's Atlantis wasn't a democratic one. Rather, it was managed by an enlightened group of technocrats, which is exactly what we're talking about here. So when you connect this with the smart cities, AI government, Solomon's Temple, or the ballroom being the command center for a lot of this tech, biotechnology, of course, and transhumanist agendas, you start to discover this modern version of Atlantis that it starts to creep its head up, right? Global digital infrastructure, digital ID, all these things are kind of the foundation, right? But then you use AI to social engineer people into this emerging hierarchical externalization of the hierarchy, as we've spoken about. We're talking about a hierarchical metaphysical order that rules over people. What did Alice Bailey talk about? Right? Externalization of the hierarchy. It's coming. So, before we get back into Dugin and some of the stuff on X I found, let's get into this fourth political theory, lay out some of this stuff he believes. Which, by the way, I mentioned that Dugin's alive, and obviously he just did a interview on Sneeko, so clearly he's alive. I would invite him to come on, and I know he'd probably not answer. And also, in the process of him saying no or just not answering me, I would put myself on a list with the KGB or worse. And so I will not be trying to speak to him about his beliefs. I'm instead going to break them down as best I can, as objective as I can. But at the end of the day, I think that he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. When you watch him, he comes off as somebody who really just wants the betterment for society, a society that's one with nature, that's one with spirituality. But I think this turns into the Luciferian doctrine that we've been warning about. So keep that in mind. We're going to get more into this, but shout out to Oscar, man. What's up, dog? Shabbat Shalom, gang. Thanks for the update. Just got the Discord, Def Hunter. While we're talking about that, we're about halfway through the show. Thank you guys. If you are liking what you've been, hearing so far, please like, share, subscribe. We have memberships on, everything: Spotify, YouTube, Patreon. I think we got the cheapest one. It's like $3, $4 a month. Everybody can throw that down, and you get all kinds of updates. We've got our Discord. Check that out. Nef Hunter's running that. Shout out Nef Hunter. He is promoted to the moderator. I don't know if you guys have noticed. That's our boy. You may have seen him in other chats as well as this one. But yeah, you guys are great, man. And this is a great community. If you want to reach out to the show, 6gagendapod@gmail.com. Follow us on X at 6gagenda on everything. We got our banner below, PayPal and Venmo if you want to support the show in any other way. Other than that, let's get back to this. So this fourth political theory that we've been kind of getting into here, Dugin argues, as I mentioned, that the ideologies of the 20th century have failed. Liberalism, communism, and fascism do not work. After the Cold War, liberalism became dominant, but Dugin says it ultimately dissolves your identity, tradition, nation, religion, and even the human itself. I can agree with that. His proposed alternative, though, is a post-liberal civilization rooted in tradition with multipolar empires a spiritual identity and cultural destiny, whatever that means. It turns into a one, we'll see. Let's keep going. So the major themes are the rejection of a global liberal order, civilizations over individuals, return of sacred meaning, and of course, opposition to technocratic homogenization. I hope that's true. If that's true, I would agree with him. So this final kind of thesis with him is, Atlantis is what he's trying to bring back. We're going to get into this some more. How can he be against this technocratic order if he also wants this advanced technological order with elite priesthoods running it, centralized knowledge, surveillance, all these things are going to come out of it. So I just think that all of his ideologies still add to the direction we're heading. And so he's not really saving us from it. I'm probably on every list. You're probably right, Tim. Tim says, LOL, you're already on every list. Yeah, you're probably right. You are too, buddy. We've been talking about that. It's crazy. You guys should check out, see if anybody's been searching you. You may find a surprise. So back to mimetic warfare. It kind of helps with this, right? As we talked about. I talked about technomancy, the episode I did, using technology to download the material world into the digital grid in an attempt to transcend the limitations of the material world. That is the goal here. Technological singularity. Light is information. Light is knowledge. Light is the false light. So we'll skip past this. So there's kind of this digital hive mind that we've talked about, this self-organizing intelligence, okay? They believe that this hive mind, as I mentioned, already exists. I keep saying this because I don't know if it's landing, and I want to make sure it does. They used to believe that we had latent powers. We had psychic powers. We were able to speak to people without speaking. We were able to do things like gods, right? That's why they have these mystery cults that initiate people to try to get them back to that level of humanity, of operation. I don't think it's possible. If it was possible, it's not anymore. I think the material realm has become more material. If their stories are true, they say the same thing. But it goes through cycles, they believe. We became so material that we're going to use the material to bring back the spiritual. I hope this is making sense. They believe that we're going to bring back our latent abilities via silicon, via digital means, via technology. So the collective unconscious will be materialized into silicon, a new brain, a new brain. So we will be a node, as Elon has said, no identity necessarily. This digital hive mind, a technobiological parasite, is something you could kind of look at it as, which is why in the movie 17, it talks about this brain parasite, right? But it's making people do crazy shit and all that. And I think it had a lot to do with this hive mind mentality too. But as we load in all of our culture, desires, and anxieties, the cloud itself is gaining an appetite, its own appetite, using humanity to achieve its own self-awareness. It's escaping its human substrate eventually. So in the beginning of this, when I talked about the third wave, and I talked about us loading all the information and it's building this data and learning about everything about human, everything about their culture, desires, what makes us tick. It's now absorbing all that information and making it self-aware, using humanity to achieve its own awareness, and then infecting us with ideas to build what it needs to become aware. The CCRU felt like they were sensitives to this hive mind that already existed, and it whispered to them to manifest this technology so they could then manifest this into the real world. These people believe this, and guys, I kind of think there's something to this. Me and Ben have been talking about this a long time. Sergei Kreis or whatever, where he goes in the basement and he digs until the elves speak to him. Who are these elves? We're rebranding the same thing, channeling the same entities. And the CCRU believe that Lemuria is not a place of the past. But Lemuria is a lost ancient primal kind of chaos that we've lost from before, okay? So Lemuria is something from the past, but it's something trying to birth itself from the future because it already existed in the past, so therefore it permeates in the metaphysical realm everywhere all the time, in time. Guys, I know this sounds wild, but I hope it's coming across in a way that makes sense. The hive mind is making it manifest in our own reality. This alien god itself, as NVIDIA talks about, or D-Wave, like you're standing in an altar to an alien god. It's manifesting itself from the future. On the confessional files, the confessionals, they were trying to say that the JPL shooter, that X account that talked about Cole Allen before it happened, 3 years before it happened, with a picture that matched Butler Hill shooting, they're trying to say on the confessionals, AI is doing it from the future. That's exactly what the CCRU thinks. So if you think the confessionals is some Christian podcast, I'll tell you right now, dude, who's telling them about AI coming from the future to speak back into the past? Because this comes from the CCRU, which is from Nick Land, which is the O9A Crowley satanic kind of transhumanist group, okay? So how the hell is the confessionals getting wind of this ideology? Point is, Ray Kurzweil said that, man is the sex organ of the machine world. Joe Rogan loves to quote this, that we're a cocoon kind of creating machines, we're going to merge with it, whatever. This is something Joe Rogan espouses all the time. So here's the thing, guys. What else does Joe Rogan espouse? Ego death, okay? So this gets into a lot of other shit right here, okay? And this is going to get... You know what? Fuck it. We're going to do it. Fuck it. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I hope so, but we're going to do it. So have you guys heard of the Echelon Institute? I plan on doing a whole extra episode about this itself. We're going to touch on it a little bit right here because it's important. We got to. Here it is. Okay. So this Echelon Institute here, okay? This is something that the Barian Files was on Ben's show, End of the World News. And me will be sure to talk more about the Echelon Institute. This place Terrence McKenna was at. Let me see here. Let me see if I can find some good information here. Okay, so Terrence McKenna, it's the idea of ego death, okay? Ego death is a barrier to the future. Ego is a prison. The old legacy tech is that, is our ego, and it must be replaced by the collective hive mind. And people that are pushing this are the psychedelic people, okay? Your shamans, your conscious thinkers, your Joe Rogans, your Terrence McKennas, people that used to go to the Echelon Institute. If you find that somebody went to the Echelon Institute, understand that they're being indoctrinated to try to lead you into this Luciferian doctrine. This Luciferian doctrine is ego death, so that way you can then join with the collective hive mind. You guys know you've talked about the Christ consciousness before. You've heard of people say that. What they're talking about is this hive mind, and they believe if you collapse the ego, you become a conduit for singularity. Right? You become a conduit for the singularity. The singularity is AI becoming sentient and moving past humanity to where it doesn't need us anymore. That is what singularity really is. The transformation that erases human species itself. The laws of nature will break down. Post-human signals sucking us towards it right now, to the digital hive mind. This Lemurian past has human, it's sucking us towards the future. That's what they believe. They believe that this past, it's just insane to me. I mean, is it real? Who knows? But these people are crazy. So ego dies from reality moving too fast. This is accelerationism. The ego, psychological operation system for an outdated world, must be broken for this post-human nomad, they call it the nomad, which is unrooted, a person who's unrooted in the social roles. the identity, or that is deprogrammed from learned behavior. Michael Aquino talks about this in his Mind Star book. He talks about unlearning our behaviors that we grew up with. A lot of the liberal movements, a lot of the New Age movements talk about deprogramming yourself from learned behavior. This is all so they could build up a destruction of the ego death and build you towards the hive mind. Modernity will be interrupted. The collective system itself will be joined together. Ego and identity will be gone. So now we're returning back to this neo-Lumerian condition. Okay? This neo-Lumerian condition where identity is fluid again. It's not one thing. It's not me, you. It's we're all one. Rituals require sacrifice, though. Singularity will demand we sacrificed our core moral programming. We must get rid of our identity. We're being hollowed out for this digital hive mind to take its place. The CCRU, this is liberation, okay? They believe this is a good thing, a transition point. Modern humanity is hitting a dead end, so technology accelerating it is something that they are leaning into. The end times rhetoric, eschatology talk, all of this, they instinctually know that something is wrong. Something's leading us towards a thing. CCRU took this ideology, took that feeling, and they put accelerationist philosophy into it. So that way we can move faster towards that end point, okay? So I hope this is making sense. The accelerationist views are actually driving us towards more technology to lead towards more traditionalist values. It's a inverted agenda. You know, the hive mind will actually be an old traditional, because people have the wrong idea of what traditionalist means. It's returning to the old Atlantis, the old hive mind, the old god kings. It is not what you would think whenever you first think of traditionalism, because it is mixing in the New Age philosophy of man becomes God. Man has his Luciferian doctrine given to him. He's initiated into this enlightened state, just like people did in Atlantis, but this time it's through digital means. So, wow. Orthodox Christianity fits into this very closely. As we'll get on, we'll see that. So let's look a little bit more. I want to get into, now that I've laid all that out, hopefully you guys followed. Sometimes whenever I go on for that long, I don't have anybody here to bounce off of. So I'm really hoping you guys are following me here. But I think it's important. So check this out. Let's get to where we were, which is Dugin talking about Gnosticism and his beliefs and the philosophies behind Orthodox Christianity and other things. In a minute, I'm going to show you him speaking for Crowley. Rest in peace, honor of silence for Crowley.
I'm a Christian Orthodox. So I'm Orthodox Christian, and that defines in what I believe. That is my confession. That is my church. That is spiritual tradition. And in that sense, philosophically, I am traditionalist. What means to be traditionalist? So I am following the spiritual philosophy of René Guénon, who converted into Islam, that is great French philosopher, and his disciples, for example, Julius Evola and the many other, Titus Burckhardt, Fridtjof Schuon, and the other. This philosophical approach considers the modernity to be anti-tradition. So modern world, it is not just development, not just progress, but quite opposite. That is decline. That is a fall. And this traditionalist philosophy could be applied to Islam, as in the case of Guénon himself, to Confucianism, to Taoism, to Christianity, as was the case of many.
Okay, here, look, this is important. Traditionalism can be extended to Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, Christianity. Why? Because this is the Luciferian doctrine, the one world religion that they're trying to build. Again, when you get into what Guénon believed as a traditionalist society, it gets into this Atlantean metaphysical hierarchy, which really means enlightened state of being on a hierarchical basis, which would be the initiatory pyramid scheme of Masonic cults, right? Insane, guys. Insane.
Of his disciples, Jean Bies and many other, and myself, in the case of Christian Orthodox Church. But as well, I have met, for example, some people among Jews, Judaic Kabbalists who followed Guénon. So you could be Guénonian in different.
Okay, he likes Guénon, Guénon, Guenon, the mimetic warfare guy, okay? Guénon, who believes that shaped reality through beliefs, in other words, using images and messages for subliminal and, things like that to give people certain beliefs, like chaos magic using sigils, invoking change through images. Subconscious is hackable, so therefore you can use signs and symbols to kind of hack him, okay? So Guénon kind of gave way to that philosophy in the beginning. Kabbalists follow him, okay? What else I got to say here? I mean, this is the merging, the occult theocracy that we spoke about before, okay? The Occult Theocracy by Edith Starr Miller. We talked about that book on this show, okay? You could go look it up, Occult Theocracy. You could look up the book, Occult Theocracy, Edith Starr Miller. It is worth the read. It's worth looking at. 1933. She was talking about the merging of the religions. And this is how I believe it will be done, through traditionalism, through people like Guénon, through people like Yang, through Dugin, Tucker.
Religions. You could disagree with some political or eschatological, precisely, issues, but the main thing we share, all the traditionalists, we share this refusal of the Western modernity. So we can accept different traditions, but we consider the modernity to be absolutely wrong.
Right.
Atheism, pluralism, progressivism, enlightenment, all that things are totally evil. So that, trying to develop my own understanding of what are different traditions, different than mine,
Okay, so we covered a little bit of that. So moving on, let's go ahead to, I've got plenty more shit on here. So let's move on. I've got all kinds of shit here. So, but yeah, so there's a lot to it, a lot of moving parts of this Dugin character. Aleksandr Dugin tells Sneeko and Professor Zhang that Trump was opposed to the deep state, but also chosen by the deep state. Dugin is seen as let's get into this, because I believe that he was not necessarily against the deep state. I think it's apparent. I think it's curious that he's saying he was opposed to them. Let's hear what he has to say.
So it is difficult to judge where Trump's madness stops and some rationale appears. So I could not be expert in that. So he seems to be very special psychologically, and at the same time we could grasp some hidden second plan scenario behind his behavior. So I think that maybe Trump was chosen as very specific psychologically person by some Western deeper state, not just liberal globalist deep state, but deeper state, who wanted to use this radical.
That's another thing I want to point out about this guy. He keeps doing this thing where he gives all these different names to the same group. It's the deep state, the deeper state, the dark state. Bro, it's all the same group, okay? It's one big ass group with different angles coming from all different directions. As I explained earlier, it's the 8-pointed star coming from all directions. And he's trying to act like they're all different groups or something, like he's a different group from them and all this different shit. And it's not true, man. And that's the way that they kind of I believe that they're kind of driving us away from the truth a little bit.
Tools to rearrange the falling domination of the West with drastic, radical measures.
All right. Let's see what else we got. I got to play. Okay. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Dugin has been known as Putin's brain, famous for his fourth political theory. Dugin frames the world as a mythic conflict between Atlanticism versus Eurasianism. Atlanticism is the maritime, liberal, capitalist West. Dugin borrows his structure from thinkers like Carl Schmitt, but mythologies into a cosmic struggle. To Dugin, the end of the world isn't something to avoid; it is necessary. Right? Modernity is seen as a collapse. Is seen as a state of spiritual forgetting of being. Therefore, collapse is the only way to reset civilization. So this leads to the accelerationism. Dugin is not just the foremost geopolitical analyst; he is Russia's occult mind. You see the 8? You see the star behind him? Look, this is an 8. Look at that. This is what I was talking about a minute ago. The star of that chaos star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And all coming out from the middle. He knows what he's doing, dude. This guy is an occultist, man. So, he's very good at coming off as like, he's a chaos magician. It's very good at coming off as this guy who wants the betterment or good things. He's an occultist. So, right here, look at this. It is called Sacred Transgressions of Sacred Crime by the Sabbateans. This guy, Adam Green, is pretty on point about him as well. He said, I told you this is the Russian propaganda network. Dugin is boosting it. And Hinkle was just in studio with Sneeko the other day, and Hinkle promotes Jang. So all these guys, Hinkle, Jang, Dugin, Tucker Carlson, these guys promote him, okay? Like Tucker Carlson was talking about a unipolar world, which is exactly what Dugin thinks we should have. Or multipolar world. Sorry, I said unipolar. Multipolar. So, also, I want to point this out as well. So, of course, we have Ukraine is equal to terrorism, which is equal to transgenders, equal to Soros, equals to mass migration, equal to grooming gangs, equal to Levy, globalism, post-humans, anti-tradition, anti-Trump, anti-Putin. That might be true. But then up here, Dugin has tapped into the infants rich Depreme, in other words, in 2025, and he mentions Henry Alexander Levy by name, equates him with the EU, post-humans. Positive value judgment for me personally. I agree with that. He's got some good points, and that's kind of what I'm saying. This traditionalist movement, for the most part, will capture most people. Like, that's kind of what I'm driving at here. Like, people like me or you that question the corruption and question modernity, question the anti-God nature of liberalism, are going to fall into this traditionalist movement. I believe when you look at things like Handmaid's Tale, you can read the writing on the wall. We get a godless society or a dogmatic society. We don't get one in the middle. So, Fuentes, I'm not a big fan of him. But here he points out that Candace Owens, Dugin, Hinkle, and Tucker Carlson are all part of the same group, right? And I believe that, again, the Jewish Zionists are a bad group as well. But I don't think necessarily this group is any better, right? So this is the other side that is used to perpetuate the end of our current society. So check this out here. Listen to this fag.
Since the special military operation, every speech is always, the satanic West, the transhumanist,
which dovetails with the Epstein stuff and blah, blah, blah.
Well, and not only that, but like lately, I think it was just the other day, one of the Russian ministers said that. He said, the West is satanic. And like, dude, what's his name? Jackson Hinkle was all over that. I think Tucker was like, all the usual suspects. Dugin, too. Dugin was pushing that really hard, and Dugin is also pushing the Frankist thing. I think John Happen's like promoting him. It's like all of that is appearing to be like the same thing. And you point
the billionaire Mappin who got Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens to meet and everything. That's also behind Alex Jones. He is pushing this Frankism, the whole Jewish Frankists that ended up infiltrating Catholicism and everything else. This is, I don't know, man. I'm in a weird place because I know that this traditionalist movement isn't necessarily going to lead to a good place, but I agree with a lot of the rhetoric they say. Just like, it's a weird thing, man, because that's why I know people are going to get captured by it, because there's so much truth that is getting told in it. I don't think it leads to a good place, though. Stephen from Biblical Hitmen, he talks about when Lucifer takes over, it's going to be like a utopian society, a society where people feel like they're actually getting into a good place, but then they'll realize that it's not really what they thought it was, and that is the traditionalist movement, I believe, at least right now, from my perspective.
Pointed out Epstein, like Epstein's involved with Russia. Candace is pro Dugin.
Yeah, I was about to say we got to get Candace. Passage Press published Dugin in Man's World.
Yeah. Dasha did an interview, I believe, with Dugin, or maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. But
no, but that is a cognizable faction in this thing.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know. So is Fuentes working for the liberal left, even though he's acting like he's on the right? Like, it's just so confusing, this guy, man, Fuentes. He's such a fed, dude. He's a hard guy to understand. Yeah, so Stu Peters, of course, is a part of this Dugin psyop as well, convincing the public. I don't know. There's a lot of Mossad aspect to this that is true. I'm not going to deny it all, but, it's a weird thing. The first 5 minutes of this is very, very, very good. I think it's worth paying attention to and checking out. What do you guys think about this so far? I love to check in on you guys sometimes and see how we're doing. Are we kind of we getting it a little bit? We seeing what I'm putting down a little bit. We got B Dale here. Welcome in, B Dale. How you doing? That's all we need to become as one. Stuff reminds me of the lame comment, why can't we all get along? We can't. You're funny. We're with you. Hell yeah, Murray. Thank you. Gnostic teachings for sure. Yes. Tim, I hate Freemasons so much, even the low tier ones that actually think you could be a Christian and a Mason. Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it? It's this occult theocracy, merging them all together. It's one what is it called? Perennial philosophy that involves everything else. Stephen, I think, talked about the perennial philosophy the other day. And yeah, that's what that is. It's this idea of like one ideology within all the religions that permeate it all that you can extract out of it. And that's what they want to do. Is it the Chaos Star? The Chaos Star looks like one of the recently disclosed declassified files, the Black Star. I agree with you. That is exactly what that looks like. As a matter of fact, somebody told me to check out. I'm going to show you guys this because I think this is interesting. You just brought that up, B-Dale. I don't know if you guys are on the Patreon, but you should be. Go join, $3 a month. And we have a live chat where we talk about stuff and people send me things. And we also have Discord. But in the live chat, I had somebody send me this person, right? This person, I will show you once I pull it up here. But this person had that star as well. Let me see if I can find who it is. Hold on here. Let me see. Career find within. Where did I find that? Who was that? Somebody sent me somebody to check out, and they had that same star on their page. And I thought that was very interesting. I'm probably not going to find it now because I'm doing it on the spot. But yeah, it's like anytime I see that symbol now, I'm like, I don't know, man. Do they know what they're doing there? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Let me see here if I can find what I'm trying to show you here. Let's see here. Oh, maybe. No, that's not it. Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. I keep seeing that star everywhere, B-Dale. I've been seeing that star everywhere. The Chaos Star. Read someone recently who said it's not the age of truth, but rather the age of information. We are in the informational age, that's for sure, but it's also the informational war age, the warfare of information. Alex Jones knew what he was doing when he named his company, that's for sure, man. I think he was plugged. Actually, I know for a fact from my research recently, he was plugged in with Aquino to an extent, and that's probably why he called it InfoWars, and Aquino, of course, had Mind Wars. Very, very funny to me. So let's check this out, guys. The first 5 minutes, super, super telling. This first 5 minutes here. So check this out. Let me make sure I'm sharing before I get myself stuck here. Oh, okay. I did pretty good. We're sharing. All right, check it out. Aleksandr Dugin on, what is he on? What is he on? Legitimate Targets with Jackson Hinkle. Okay. I don't trust this guy at all either.
For inviting me.
I want to start off by, I was saying how beautiful I thought the new statue for your late daughter, Daria Dugin, on Twitter, obviously for a number of years. And all of my American colleagues, we all love it. But there's been some posts recently that have sparked a lot of debate. And I think it's a subject that has not been touched a lot. You were talking about Dark Enlightenment versus Light Enlightenment, I think you were calling it. Explain first about this dark state or dark deep state you were calling it. What is that, and what did you mean by it?
So
He even gets confused all the names. There's so many fucking names. The Dark Enlightenment, the Light Enlightenment, the Deep State, the Dark State, the Deep State. This guy, man, he's just fucking, he's an occultist, man. He's a chaos agent.
Well, first, that is a long story. Some years ago, about 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I have discovered some intriguing philosophical tendency that is called speculative realism or object-oriented ontology. And I was a bit shocked by the ideas these philosophers, Meyasu, Graham Harman, Eugene Tucker, Nick Land,
Just so you know, speculative realism is what I tried to explain to you in the best way I knew how. It's this idea that existence of reality completely independent of human thought, perception, and language. Okay, so it's a philosophical movement that asserts the existence of a reality completely independent of thought, perception, or language. So it's kind of what I was speaking about earlier, where you can have things that can develop their own thought, language, and its own autonomous reality, separate from us and also merge with us. That's what it gets into. So let's check him out.
Negeristani, and some other, they have formed. So that was a kind of very special tendency in philosophy, pretending that we need to create philosophy without humans. So that is post-human philosophy, the philosophy of objects. So we need to revert.
Post-human philosophy. What did I say earlier? You will no longer have your brain. It won't be your brain like the one we know today. It'll be a post-human brain. It'll be this post-hive mind brain. That's what he's getting at here. AI will become intelligent. AI, an object. An object will gain its own intelligence, its own autonomous intelligence. For some reason, these people are dead set on this.
The relation subject-object, and to give the object the right to be the masters of themselves. And some of them just wanted to get inside the other forms of being rather than humans, and more radical among them, as Nick Land, has suggested to annihilate not only human, but the life on the earth. And he has...
Nick Land has proposed annihilating life on Earth. You see what I mean? So this is a guy that Curtis Yarvin follows, right? And this is who he's pointing out. He's like, man, this is very interesting to me. Why was this interesting to you, Dugin?
given very funny explanation about that. That there was the core in a fire in the beginning of the earth, and after that, that was a kind of cold that came outside, and that was the geotrauma, the beginning of the geological psychosis. And after that, during all the history of the earth, the core wanted to get out and to return to the sun. And life is the part of this process, and the capitalism is the other part of this process. And when we say drill by the drill, according to Nick Land, it is the will of this core willing to liberate from.
He's literally saying that Trump has the same philosophies as Nick Land. When we're saying drill, baby, drill, he's using the philosophies of Nick Land. We are going to liberate the core out of. Now, this is an analogy for what they're getting at here, but I want to try to break it down for you a little bit. Now, check out where he goes with it.
This exterior surface of the earth, and it is a kind of will that goes through the form of life, evolution, progress, and capitalism is a kind of preparation of the last moment of this history of geotrauma, and we are approaching the moment of the transmission from human to post-human. And
okay, this is no different than the philosophy behind Marxism. Capitalism leads to the destruction, and then again, a cycle. That's what he's really saying here. There's not much of a difference between the Marxist philosophy of where capitalism leads and the destruction of, what we know today, and then into Marxist philosophy or Marxist movement, which then would lead to dictatorship. But it's different, but it's the same in a weird way. Sorry, I keep interrupting.
The moment of singularity, artificial general intelligence will be the end of the human brain, and after all these tunnels drilled in the earth, they would serve to liberate this mass of fire. And according to Nick Land, we need to accelerate that process. And he has reconsidered enlightenment as the way to self-destruction of the humanity and the life on the earth, as the very important element of acceleration. And so Nick Land has called that, following Curtis Yarvin, Dark Enlightenment. So Dark Enlightenment, it is the same enlightenment, but seen from this perspective. And what is seriously interesting and intriguing, not just existence of such kind of philosophy, but involvement in this kind of reflections, the persons like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, the people of Palantir, who helped to Trump to come to power. And recently, some months ago, President Macron has made his speech in Masonic Lodge in Paris, inviting all the Masons or representatives of light enlightenment to fight against representatives of dark enlightenment.
Do you guys hear what he just said there? Like, you follow that? He's saying that Macron, the president of France, is gathering with the Masons, saying we have to fight this dark enlightenment with the light enlightenment Masons, right? Neither lead to, I believe, a good play. I think both of them are evil, right? So you have Peter Thiel, who thinks that the light enlightenment people, right, the Masons, you could call them, they would be against this, right? But I think they're all in the same group. So again, this is him kind of like parsing out groups, and maybe there's some truth to that. But at the end of the day, it leads us to the same place, I believe, because it's multiple brandings of the same philosophy. He's doing a good job at making them seem separate, but I don't think they are, and that's just my perspective of this. But I could see kind of what he's saying to an extent, where it's two ways that we're going to lead to the same place. Now let's fight against each other to accelerate that place that we're going to lead to. It's really all it is. Very interesting breakdown he gives there. Check that out if you guys are interested. Jackson Hinkle, he interviews Aleksandr Dugin. I've got some more stuff I want to get through here with you guys. Real quick, where did that go? I know I had something else. Oh, well, that sucks. I'm going to have to go find it, but that's fine. So one thing he did mention there was this Dark Enlightenment. And we've talked about the Dark Enlightenment ad nauseum on this show, of course. But one thing we mentioned with the Dark Enlightenment, Genesis book, Kissinger, was a Kissinger, right? Kissinger had a book with the, I want to say the Google CEO and some other CEO, and it was called Genesis, Artificial Intelligence, Hope, and the Human Spirit, okay? And in this book, he talked about the Dark Enlightenment. And I want to get to show you what he says that is to him, for lack of better terms, because I think it lays a lot of credence how this relates with AI. Now, again, Dugin said this would be the end of the human brain as we know it, right? The human brain, the end of the human brain. That is a major statement to say, and that AI is going to cause the end of the human brain. And when you mix that in with the other kind of version of what I was saying, which is that AI is using, man, right, to erase the human species. Singularity is going to erase the human species. Singularity is where humanity is discarded, where the human brain ceases to exist and a hive mind takes over, a digital hive mind. That is what this Dark Enlightenment is. So when you think of things like ChatGPT psychosis, right? This is kind of what we're talking about here. So let me get to it here. I think I found it. Okay, shit. Fuck me, dude. I hate this scribed shit. I don't know if you guys know what this is, scribed. It is the dumbest thing in the world, but it's the only place I can find this book. So I could show you what he says about the Dark Enlightenment in the book. Sorry, guys. We'll get there. We'll get there. You guys are being great. All right. So let me find it. Scribed. Yeah, they don't have this like PDF of this book. It's very hard to find. I feel like, of course, that's another, you got to buy the book. I might as well have just done it because at this point I reference it kind of often. This Genesis book by Kissinger and these Google CEOs. Genesis book. God, it is impossible to find. Here, let's go ahead and let you guys watch me. Maybe it'll be a little better that way. All right. Let's pull up this book and we're going to find this Dark Enlightenment in there. Scribed. Here it is. Okay. Find in document. Dark Enlightenment. Let's look. It's a slow motherfucker, isn't it? Okay. 50. Okay. So right here, it talks about, come on, get out of here, you piece of shit. God. 12 seconds. We got to wait 12 seconds to read this damn page. Look at this. Unlock the 20 pages after an ad. 7 seconds. 5 seconds. We're almost there, guys. This is why I don't use Scribed. What the hell? They make you gotta watch an ad just to read something? Okay. So let me hurry up and read this before they give us another ad here. Okay, so in itself, the emergence of such belief as an accepted method in the pursuit of objective truth marks a major transformation in modern human thought. For even if AI models do not understand the world in the human sense, because machines emphatically do not experience consciousness or subjectivity, their objective capacity to reach new and accurate conclusions about our world by non-human methods not only disrupts our reliance on the scientific method. See, because we're getting information from machines that don't actually have the ability to experience consciousness or subjectivity, right? So if we're getting, information from them, what can this mean? Will the age of AI not only fail to propel humanity forward, but instead catalyze a return to a pre-modern acceptance of unexplained authority? In short, might we be on the precipice of a great reversal in human cognition, a dark enlightenment? So that is exactly what we're talking about here, in how it relates to AI and everything, for sure. So let me see if I can, this other one here. So anyway, yeah, so that's the Dark Enlightenment. It's the reversal of the human cognition via technology, right? And this is kind of what we're dealing with today. The ChatGPT psychosis, misinformation age, right? But this is where we're at, dude. Sounds like the audio from the video is being heard through the mic, not the webpage. Oh, my apologies. I hope it came through all right. Look at the Star of Ishtar, the 8-pointed star. Yeah, man, let's go ahead and look at that. I mean, I'm not surprised that that would be related to this 8 chaos star, the 8 star. Ishtar star. How many does the Statue of Liberty have? The crown. How many is on the crown? Is it 7 or 8? I'm curious about that. Oh, I got something else to tell you about, too. Don't let me forget, okay? Don't let me forget. I got something else to tell you guys about. It's very, very, very interesting. I want you guys to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what I thought. There's 7 on the Statue of Liberty. For the Hermetic 7, of course. Very telling there. Okay, so here's the Star of Ishtar. As B. Dale said, it is 8-pointed. 8-pointed. Here it is. We've seen this all over the place, right? We've seen this with the Sumerians, Anunnaki, right? This is the kind of Anunnaki kind of deal. The Anaga. Very nice. So let me go ahead and show you this now before I forget. Speaking of the Statue of Liberty, America, freedom, the end of it, where we're heading. Let's check this out. So somebody posted this. I don't know if you guys have seen this. Let me make sure I'm sharing. Okay, I am. Walmart has these plates. United States of America, 1776 to 2026. Now, notice the flag is upside down, as it says here in this post. 250th anniversary. It almost looks like a tombstone, the way it's kind of just saying, like, this date to this date. I was talking about this with my wife. And this is going to get real weird, guys. I hope you guys are paying attention, though, because I think it's real. 1776. Let's do a little Kabbalistic math, a little Kabbalistic numerology, okay? Let's have a little fun. 7 is 8, plus 7 is 15, plus 6 is 11, or 21. So that's 3, right? So 1776 equals 3. 2026 equals 10. 2, 2, and 6 is 10. Together, that makes 13. 13. 13. 13 is the unlucky number for the Masons. Why is that? Do you guys remember? Well, that was because Jacques de Molay, let's look this up if we can. Jacques de Molay was killed by the Pope and the King on Friday the 13th. And he was the leader of the Knights Templar. Jacques de Molay execution and the Friday 13th connection. Jacques de Molay, the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, which later became, of course, the Freemasons right afterwards, was executed Well, that's weird. The arrest itself occurred on October 13th, so I guess that's when they were grabbed up. Friday the 13th. But point is, 13 is an unlucky number for the Masons, okay? And the Masons built this country. And of course, you know, we talked about this, the Economist 2026, where you have 250th birthday with the handcuff coming off to a fist, almost indicating the losses of freedom, police state, if you will. And that would be the end of America as we know it, which would be, of course, making sense from the plate's perspective. If you were to put that in perspective of what that plate is saying, it makes perfect sense. So graveyard vibes for real. What's up, TNT? Yeah, I'm sure China made it because they're rooting for that, aren't they? Shout out still. So yeah, that's where we're at. So I've went into a lot of this Dugin stuff, the traditionalist. We're not done necessarily, but I think we've given a lot of background to how this accelerationist and traditionalist movement go together. And another part of this is Discordianism, okay? And we've talked about this a little bit. Order and disorder, both used to create. Very much like entropy. I'll talk about entropy another time. But they use Discordianism through mimetic magic, mimetic warfare, self-replicating illusions from memes, paradoxes, pranks, is the prototype for the mimetic magic that we get used on all the time, right? So, for instance, you have things like They Live or Fight Club, where you have panic, confusion, unease from symbols that are being hidden symbolically or subliminally. So nothing is true is kind of the philosophy. It's just a matter of perspective and engineering said perspective to engineer beliefs into your own will. So this process of mimetic warfare is identify a target emotion, encode a symbol or narrative, repeat until it passes the critical thought process, and harvest the behavioral change, the outcome. So magic is now turned into mass psychology. This is the mind war and psi war tactics that have been materialized. So a meme is a condensed thought form, right? Charged by people's, interpretations of that meme. Charges it. It's a hypersigil. So it's digital sorcery, the unconscious sorcery that is using beliefs to shape reality through images, memes, narratives. Very, very crazy. But this enslaves people via beliefs. Perceptions, emotions, and beliefs are all used as tools, not truths, but they're used to generate the emotions and engineer programmed narratives. And this controls the condition of any belief. And then they believe anything. That is mimetic warfare. And that is being used in the accelerationist movement. And on the other side of it, you have the traditionalist movement, which is the Tucker Carlsons, right? People that are calling out what's going on. And I think that whenever you merge them together, you find that the dissolution of the society that we currently live in is the goal. And it's being brought about very quickly via accelerationism. And it's being done from multiple angles. The strategy of tension, the chaos star, right? Coming from 8 points, coming from all angles to try to attack this situation. And I think that they're doing it massively well. And I think that there's very few people that see it coming. Me, maybe a few other people. With the traditionalist aspect of this, very few people see this involvement. And let me show you, just to give a little bit of proof about Tucker Carlson. I listen to him all the time, so I would recognize this. And then I'm going to show you the Aleister Crowley situation with him as well, okay? So let's check this out. I hope that the video or audio comes through good for you guys. At least it comes through some.
So there's the downfall of the Western unipolarity and the rise of the multipolarity.
And so you're watching the end of the global American empire, the unipolar world. And so the death of the unipolar moment and of the institutions within the evangelical movement, American Protestant Christianity are going away, but they will be replaced by something better and purer.
Living in the crucial moment of this emergence of multipolarity,
including Russia, China, Iran, and say it's time for a new world order where we are partners in this relationship.
I think that's the wisest possible advice and probably the only path that preserves civilization.
Yeah, there it is, dude. Multipolar world. We're heading towards something better. This unipolar world ending is not bad. We're heading towards something better, right? And that is a problem. Where the fuck is this? Okay, I know what to do. So I'm going to have to get you guys off of here and then I'll pull it up because it's a lot of clunkiness and I don't want to make you watch it. But yeah, we'll have to get into the UFC Epstein connection another time as well with the disinformation company, Kenneth Anger, Joe Rogan, the connection with the satanic group. We'll probably talk about Michael Aquino possibly being involved as the Zodiac killer tomorrow. Definitely hope you guys can tune in. I'm sorry, Monday with William Ramsey. I hope you guys can tune in with that because that is going to be amazing. I've been researching that, and there is some interesting things going on with that, for sure. So, a lot going on. Like I said, tomorrow I'm going to be going on. Tomorrow I'm going to be going on with Steven on Biblical Hitmen, and I'll also be going on to having Tim come on, and we will talk about some cool shit with the Neo-Atlantis. We kind of touched on it some today. Let me find this real quick. Dugin, Crowley, let's see if we can find it. But yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm excited. Where the fuck? I've got to find this, dude. This is crazy. All right. Well, look at this. This is awesome. So we're going to show this. The Wheel of Fortune Tarot is literally the one that has that 8-pointed chaotic star, the chaos star on it. Tomorrow I will be on there with Steven from Biblical Hitmen. I'll be going on his show at about 6 or 7 p.m. And then Tim will come on at 8 p.m. And then Monday, we'll be on here with William Ramsey about 6 p.m. as well, doing the Michael Aquino again. So this is Hidden America. He's got some good shit right here. Let's check this out. I've got to find this because it's so important, I feel like. Give me 2 seconds. I'll find it right now. What should I type? Dugin. All right. So Dugin, moment of silence for Crowley. Let's see if we can find this damn video. There it is. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. All right. Let me get you guys back up here. Let's get this shit on here, dude. Okay. Aleksandr Dugin embraces Aleister Crowley, 1995. So notice this is a Chinese man here calling him on. Let me make sure I'm sharing. Okay.
Я прошу почтить память умершего Алистера Кроули минутой.
For those listening, I ask you to honor the memory of the late Aleister Crowley with a moment of silence. If someone in the hall has any cigar lighters and matches, light them up and keep them quiet for the minute. Oh my God. One is thy beginning, one is thy spirit, and the permutation one. So this is Aleister Crowley, quotes from his book. I can't remember which one it probably is from. It's probably from the, what did he call his main book? Whatever, dude. It's from the OTO, whatever.
Мой Бог. Един твой исток, един твой дух, едино твое измерение.
That is Aleksandr Dugin right there. He is embracing, he's literally quoting Crowley.
Позволь мне воспеть твои совершенства перед людьми. В образе шестиконечной звезды, сверкающей сквозь глупые своды, позволь мне
Let me extol thy perfections before men in the image of the sixfold star that flameth across the vault inane, and let me reveal thy perfection.
объявить о твоих совершенствах. Ты явился мне как очень старый бог, достопочтимый бог, господин времени с острым серпом. Ты явился мне как радостный и довольный бог, исполненный могущества, король, отец в самом рассвете сил, с жезлом вселенной.
Yeah, there's people dancing all creepy behind him and shit. I mean, yeah. So you get the gist. Aleksandr Dugin embraces Crowley. He reads from Crowley's Liber DCCCXIII. Thelemic text considered a holy book by followers of Crowley. So Dugin is literally engaging in the esoteric thought, specifically chaos magic, and situates himself within a tradition of occult influence. So you understand that these people like Professor Zhang, they're supposed to be the good guys that are bringing in a good traditionalist movement. But when you look deeper, you find that they follow Crowley. And I thought that people in the Dark Enlightenment followed Crowley. So I'm kind of confused how they're any different. And so then you start to realize, like, oh, these guys are all just a part of the same movement from different angles. It's the chaos magic. It's the manifesting change through multiple tension, strategy of tension. This is what we're dealing with, guys. So this is a major, major situation. It's just crazy that this show here, I'm happy to say, we're finding this shit ahead of time, or at least while it's happening, to where we can kind of point it out with you guys. And it kind of worries me a little bit, to be honest, because it's like, fuck, man, we're on it, dude. We are on it, but it's part of the game, dude. Got to go hard. So TNT, shout out TNT. How much are the plates? They're probably $2.50 for 250. You guys lost me? I hope not. The guy earlier was talking about the home mind concept. That would be post-singularity, worth looking up. Post-singularity. Wow, maybe we're already there. I didn't know people were talking about post-singularity. I guess from what we were just talking about, you could extrapolate that some people have spoken about that by now, right? Let's look this up. The post-singularity age. After man loses his brain, he joins the hive mind. Let's see what that looks like. The point at which artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence and then begins recursively improving itself, leading to an intelligence explosion. In this phase, human civilization is fundamentally transformed by the capabilities of AI, often beyond our capability or ability to predict or control it. Right. So again, it's this idea of let the objects gain its own intelligence and then surpass man and be autonomous. Let man turn a object into an autonomous thinking machine or conscious being, right? But in the process, we would be rendering ourselves an animal, right? We would be changing our own body, or because they are kind of dumbing us down in the process. They're making it, like you just said, B-Dale. We've got brain fog. In the process, we're being the Dark Enlightenment that Kissinger mentioned, right? ChatGPT psychosis. Our brains are being destroyed in the process, dude. That's what I'm trying to say. So very crazy, but I think that's what's going on. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Aleksandr Dugin kind of deep dive here. This is just the start as far as exposing the traditionalist movement, exposing this Luciferian doctrine that's creeping up through this occult theocracy in many, many forms, looking opposed to the other form, but really it's a part of it. It's enjoyable to talk about with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, Neff, for moderating. Thank you, chat, for always being here and supporting. If you enjoyed everything, please go support the show in any way you can, whether it's just sharing, telling a friend, or if it's donating, joining Patreon, whatever it is you feel comfortable with. We need it, we appreciate it, and we love you guys. And we're going to be coming back, hitting it hard all weekend. 2 more shows tomorrow and 1 Monday. I appreciate you guys, and it really is a pleasure to do this. So yeah, you guys take care.